All right, it's time for some real talk, some real analysis of what's actually happening right now between the United States and pretty much everybody else. Okay, let's call it what it is. It's the U.S. versus the world, not in some military fashion. I'm talking about diplomatically. Does that mean there's aren't people out there who are sympathetic to our goals, our desires? No, of course not. There are some who understand, but they're not going to go against the world order. They're not going to go against, for example, Europe and their push to try to get us as involved in the Ukrainian Russian war as possible. They want us to lead the fight. They want this to be the big boys, Russia versus the United States. No longer do they want it to be Ukraine or any of their boys. They want our boys and girls dying overseas. They want to see World War III happen. They're trying everything they can. Oh, they can taste it. They know it's close. They're right there. Now we might say, "Oh, don't worry. Nothing to worry about here. Trump would never allow that." Except here's the thing. And we are starting to see a lot of division, further division even here in the United States of America. The reality is if Europe wanted to, and specifically the United Kingdom and France leading the way, if they really, really wanted to, and I think they do, they could goad us into war with Russia. All they have to do is, as NATO members, all they have to do is prompt Russia to attack. And that could happen in the form of putting boots on the ground, British soldiers, French soldiers on the ground in Ukraine, get them attacked, and all of a sudden there's war, and they would initiate their NATO bells, NATO sirens ring, say, "Oh, NATO member attacked. Time to call in the reinforcements. Time to get American boys and girls over here to fight this war." That is their intention. I do believe that. I think that following the ambush, because that's really what it was, the ambush by Vladimir Zelensky and his cronies over at in Legacy Media, as well as European leaders, they intended for this to happen exactly the way it's happening. Now, I should take that back. They didn't think it was going to go that far. They didn't think that Zelensky was going to get booted so quickly. Whether or not they really wanted him to sign the deal, we don't know. I've heard rumors. There are several reports out there that say that, at least for the Democrats, they were pushing for Zelensky to not sign the deal, no matter what. The only way that he would sign is if President Trump would sign security guarantees. In other words, putting U.S. troops in Ukraine to act as human shields so that once Russia attacked and took out an American soldier, then that would be the start of World War III. They said that was the only thing that would allow them to encourage Vladimir Zelensky to sign the deal. Whether that's true or not, we don't know, and we'll never know for sure. I think it's probably true. I mean, it sure seems to fit the narrative and fit their agenda. What about the other world leaders? Were they saying the same thing? I'd say they probably were as well. I think we're being set up here. I think that President Trump has subverted their intentions at least a little bit, but now they're on to Plan B, and Plan B is okay if we can't get the U.S. to put their troops in harm's way based upon the signature and enticement of rare earth minerals, then we're going to force it through our NATO alliance. Zelensky basically said as much over the weekend. Keir Starmer also basically said as much over the weekend as well. And now the French, Macron, is saying pretty much the same thing. This is, again, one big setup. Now, can they outmaneuver Trump? I don't think so. I'm actually, the question isn't whether or not they can outmaneuver him. The question is, can they lay a trap where it makes it pretty much unavoidable? And that's possible. That part is definitely possible because, again, we are a member of NATO, and there's not a whole lot that we could do if Russia does attack a NATO nation. Of course, we could just say, no, never mind, but that wouldn't go over very well at all. The world would turn against the United States of America far more than they already have. And here at home, we would have idiots such as Lizzo. Idiots such as Lizzo out there saying that President Trump is starting World War III by trying to avoid World War III. That's, of course, their logic, but they're allowed to have that perspective, even if it's idiotic and very much wrong. But according to this article over at Breitbart, left-wing pop star and former Kamala Harris campaign surrogate Lizzo says the left's warnings about President Donald Trump starting World War III have been vindicated by Elon Musk saying the U.S. should withdraw from the United Nations and NATO. She said, or she posted on Sunday, she said, when we said Trump would start World War III, they said we were being dramatic. Elon Musk supports U.S. withdrawal from NATO and the United Nations is the headline that she posted over at Blue Sky and all of her 14 followers over there. The headline Lizzo shared was from a Newsweek article reporting that Musk has supported a call for the U.S. to withdraw from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations. The article cited a Saturday night post from ex-user Gunter Eagleman, which read, "It's time to leave NATO and the UN," to which Musk replied, "I agree." And I covered that story over the weekend as well as this morning. Point being is that he's right. You know, we really do need to divorce ourselves from NATO. We need to divorce ourselves from the UN as well. That's a separate issue, to be clear. That has nothing to do Ukraine. No Ukraine. We need out of the UN as well. But that's something we can put that on hold. Okay, NATO is a pressing issue, and we must act very quickly. And I'm praying that on tomorrow, Tuesday's address to Congress and address to the nation, that President Trump announces that he's initiating plans to withdraw the United States from NATO. I know chances are slim, but it's not impossible, and we have been surprised. I think all of us have been surprised by 1 or 2 or 10 things that President Trump has done ever since Inauguration Day. Hopefully this will be another pleasant surprise. Hopefully we will hear the good news tomorrow, and of course that would create an absolute tsunami of negative press from legacy media, plus I would say almost an equal tsunami of positive press from independent, conservative, and we'll call it fringe or alternative media. We're going to be supportive of it. Legacy media is going to be against it. The question is, what will the people think? Now, to be clear, change is bad in the eyes of most Americans, even if it's a positive change. People don't like letting go of things from the past, and that's why, at least initially, if we do leave NATO, it will be viewed negatively by a majority of Americans. This is why it's so important for us, our role, yours and mine, to educate and inform people. We should really start now, because I would like to assume that the good news is coming, whether it's coming Tuesday night or next week or next month or some point in the future, Lord willing, before Europe is able to initiate and get themselves stuck into a war with Russia that would force us in. Hopefully before that happens, we can extricate ourselves from NATO. But regardless of when it happens, it's going to be viewed negatively, at least in the beginning. It will be our responsibility to educate our friends and everybody. And here's just a quick bit of help, information. You know, the original purpose of NATO when it was built, 8 decades ago, it was to stop the spread of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists, therefore there really is no need for NATO. But even those who say, well, but Russia still exists and Russia is expanding into Ukraine, that's why we need NATO, I would argue it's the other way around. I would argue that if there was no NATO, then Russia would not be invading Ukraine right now. That's hard for a lot of people to grasp, but the expansion of NATO, eastward expansion of NATO, which we promised, hey, when the Soviet Union broke up, you know, Clinton was promising, hey, we won't go any further, we won't go to the east. You know, you have my word on that. And then what do we start doing? We immediately started going to the east. We immediately started creeping closer and closer and closer to Moscow. Ukraine would be NATO's crown jewel. Both sides know that. That's why Russia has been very vehemently opposed, even as they've allowed other nations to join NATO, despite promises by NATO and by the United States to not do that. They haven't really thrown much of a Russia has not been too opposed to it, but Ukraine that's a red line. That is absolutely positively they would not allow that. And to be fair, neither would NATO, at least before. But we made the mistake, or maybe it was the intention. Maybe there was no mistake. Maybe it's happening exactly like Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris regime, and the globalist elite cabal and their puppets in NATO. Maybe they planned on this Russian invasion. And that's why they told Zelensky before the invasion. They told him, he acknowledged this on CNN years ago. He said, look, they told me that we were not getting into NATO. But they said that I shouldn't say anything, that we should leave it on the table and pretend like it's possible for Ukraine to get into NATO. That way, Russia won't invade. In other words, he was suckered. They knew that if NATO membership was off the table with Ukraine, the chances were pretty rock solid that Russia wasn't going to invade. But they convinced idiot Zelensky that, hey, pretend like you might get into NATO, and that's why Russia won't invade. Okay, he was conned. He was a useful idiot, and he remains a useful idiot for them. He thinks that he's in charge, but he's not. And I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he realizes or not that he is a puppet. Okay, he might be a very happy puppet, a very rich puppet, a very pleased puppet. Doesn't mind. Just tell me where to go, what to do, what to say. The people will love me. I'll get all the attention I want, and as a narcissist, that feeds my whatever. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I do know this, that we need to divorce ourselves from NATO. Period. And doing so would mean, essentially, since we're using these analogies, it would be basically a trial separation from Europe. And that would be of grave concern to some people. But I think that it would be short-lived. I think that over time, we would be able to rebuild those relationships. And I hate to say it. I hate to be that guy, but I will go ahead and be that guy. I really don't care if we don't rebuild our relationship with Europe. It's probably a bad move. Okay, I'm probably wrong about this one, but I don't care. Nothing against Europe. Okay, I got friends in Europe. So, I've heard good things about Europe. I've heard bad things about Europe. But frankly, I don't care. They need us, we need them, but maybe we don't, and maybe they don't. We'll see. Or we probably won't see, but I would love for us to see. But that is one of the side effects that would happen from us leaving NATO, is that it would have a cooling effect, like I said, the equivalent of a trial separation from the European Union. They would almost certainly form their own army almost immediately allegedly to counter the Russian threat, though, I mean, nobody's talking about this. No, actually, I take that back. Glenn Beck has talked about it. Glenn Beck talked about it, the fact that since we are in year 3 of this war, what does that say about Russia and their military? Are they really that scary? It's like, if they can break through Ukraine, then they're going to spread across all of Europe. That's the fear-mongering that's being done. Really? I mean, would that, if it took them over 3 years to break Ukraine, then I guess the rest of Europe, it'll take them 300 years? Even parts of Europe? I mean, sorry, Vlad. Sorry, Mr. Putin. You sort of kind of cringe a little bit how much trouble you've had just getting little bits of territory. It's like, yeah, Russia's winning. Okay. But, again, it's sort of like, it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. I'm not scared of Russia. People say, oh, but they've got nukes. Okay, well, they also had what was supposed to be a really strong army. And I'm not seeing it. Okay. Just not seeing it. So maybe the nuclear threat itself isn't that big of a deal either. And perhaps, just perhaps, they, because of their lack of military prowess and maybe maybe they wouldn't want to even risk getting into nuclear war either. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. Not saying. I'm just saying. So that's where we stand. We need to leave NATO ASAP. There's going to be pain from it. But here's what happens if we don't. If we don't leave NATO, I would suspect that our allegiance, our commitment to NATO will end up getting us involved in a war with Russia. And that will very quickly escalate into World War III. So to those people that say, you know what, maybe can't we just get peace and not leave NATO? I don't think that's possible. I think that, and I shouldn't say it's not possible. I don't think that the powers that be, the globalist elite cabal, the powers and principalities, the people like Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron or I forgot the new dude in Germany, I think that they are itching for World War III to start. They're trying to use Zelensky. They would have been able to get him to push Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever into war, but since that didn't work out, they're trying to con, use Zelensky and CNN and everybody else to play the art of the deal against the guy that wrote the art of the deal, try to get him suckered into World War III. And by the way, the reason, just a quick side note, the reason that I'm so certain that NATO wants World War III is because of the way that Mark Rutte, the new head of NATO, he has been just absolutely loving on President Trump. I mean, he's been like, oh, it really is Europe's fault. Europe really needs to step up. America has done so much. America is such an important part of NATO. America. He hates President Trump, to be clear, but you never know it. I mean, that you would think that he's. It's not that he thinks that Trump's a friend. You think that he was like a fanboy. I mean, he just gushes over Trump nonstop since the election. Okay, since the election, he's been gushing over Trump on day one. Okay, day one following the election, Mark Rutte was just like, oh, Trump. He hates President Trump, to be clear. Okay, he doesn't like him. He doesn't admire him. He's trying to use him. He's trying to play him. This is why he's trying to rein in, to some extent, at least the rhetoric coming from other NATO nations, the rhetoric coming from members of the European Union who are in NATO, and even members not in the European Union, but who are in NATO. He's trying to rein them in and say, guys, we got to be cool to Trump. We got to be nice to Trump. That's what he's doing. And that's sad, but it's reality. And we have to ask ourselves why. And I would say the reason why is because he knows that the only way that their plans, the globalist elite cabal, could be thwarted from their current trajectory is if the United States of America were to leave NATO. Therefore, I would strongly urge President Trump to do just that. It is time, finally, for us to leave NATO. Period. Anybody who's watched my show throughout the Biden-Harris regime, you're probably very well aware that I've been bullish about physical precious metals throughout. And I remain bullish, to be clear, even though obviously we're in a completely different and far better era under President Trump. I still remain bullish about gold and silver, and you can see in the spikes in prices recently of gold and silver that I have good reason to be. But here's the thing. When it came to cryptocurrencies under the Biden-Harris regime, I was very skeptical, always have been, because I just didn't trust them. I did not trust that a government that prides itself on authoritarianism would be able to handle a decentralized currency such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the like. Well, now we are in the Trump era, and all of a sudden I'm bullish. Bullish about crypto and the potential future there, especially as it pertains to one's retirement. Now, I think everybody and their dog is aware that they can back their retirement with physical precious metals such as gold and silver. I've been promoting that for a while. You can always go to jdrgold.com for that. But the addition, now that we are in 2025 and things seem to be very much on their way in the direction that we expected them to go economically under President Trump, all of a sudden, I am now bullish about protecting and potentially growing your retirement accounts through cryptocurrency. currencies. These, like I said, it took me a while. I was skeptical because I thought, oh, they're gonna come out with a central bank digital currency. Well, Trump outlawed those. They're going to come out with de-dollarization and the BRICS. Well, Trump's taking care of that. All right, so what do we have left? Now we have an upside for cryptocurrencies, and I am very, very pleased to recommend going to jdrucker.com/crypto, jdrucker.com/crypto, and find out if a crypto-backed IRA is right for you.